Paleoclimatologist Jack Hall warns delegates at the United Nations Global Warming Conference of an impending global event, according to their research, could happen within the next couple of centuries. Jack cautions that continued excessive use of fossil fuels may result in warmer climates and a subsequent new ice age. Jack meets Terry Rapson of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration after the conference, and to exchange information about their respective fields. Back at Terry's weather monitoring station, some men notice a sudden drop in ocean temperature. In Japan, massive blocks of hail fall on pedestrians. Astronauts in the International Space Station observe a number of enormous storm systems developing across the planet's surface. Sam travels to New York to participate in a decathlon meet with his friends Laura and Brian. He notices a huge flock of birds all flying in the same direction. Later, Terry calls Jack and informs him that not only were his predictions accurate, but they are also happening sooner. Jack adds that nothing like this has occurred in the previous 10,000 years. At a weather observation facility in California, an engineer learns that hail has begun to rain on the beach. He informs his colleague that a tornado warning must be issued for California. A short time later, enormous whirling pillars of air form and destroy downtown Los Angeles. People are caught off guard by this unexpected weather phenomenon, and as soon as it appeared, panic and devastation quickly swept the streets. Los Angeles is in ruins after the enormous tornadoes dissipate. Jack and his co-workers frantically tried to determine what had happened when they returned to the weather monitoring station. They learned that the same destructive weather events are occurring in regions all over the world. Jack informs everyone that the weather events might be caused by the mid-Atlantic current and that they will not only persist but also get worse. In their subsequent meeting, Jack tries to warn the vice president but is met with a cold reception. In Scotland, 3 military helicopters flew through the weather. The instruments on board began to freeze. The 3 helicopters crash when their rotors freeze in the middle of a spin. A soldier escapes and tries to run away, but as soon as he opens the door, he immediately freezes. Sam and his friends are stuck in New York after all flights were cancelled. They attempt to take the subway, but it is flooded. Without prior notice, a massive tsunami suddenly appears and wreaks havoc in downtown Manhattan. With countless other people who were fortunate enough to escape the storm surge, Sam and his friends flee to a library. Through communication, Terry and Jack discover that the icy air that brought down the helicopters is from the upper atmosphere. The weather systems are causing the air to move down too quickly, which is freezing everything on the surface. Normally, this air would warm up as it descended. They learn that their forecasts were incorrect and that the storm will arrive in a few days rather than a few weeks. 3 enormous weather systems are developing around the world and getting worse every day according to weather forecast. Jack believes that this storm will alter the planet. Sam uses a submerging phone line to speak to his parents. Jack advises him to stay inside and wait for the storm to pass because it will only worsen. He suggests that he assemble as much food and protection as he can. After that, Jack makes the decision to head to New York to get Sam. The heads of state are then briefed on the situation by Jack, who warns them that worse is yet to come. He proposes a mass exodus from the southern states to Mexico. The vice president objects to this and asks Jack what he suggests the northerners do. In response, Jack says that those in the north must hold out and remain inside until the storms pass, or they will perish if they venture outside of their homes. The president chooses to follow Jack's advice and instructs the National Guard to evacuate the remainder of the populace to the south. The refugees in the New York Library observe a group of people attempting to cross a frozen ice field in search of warmer climes before the snow gets deeper. Sam did his best to warn everyone, advising them to stay indoors during the storm because they wouldn't survive outside. However, the crowd still decides to leave. There are only Sam and a few others left in the library. Jack departs for Manhattan with his 2 co-workers Frank and Jason after making a phone call to his wife. At the Mexican border, numerous Americans are attempting to cross the border, with some even crossing the Rio Grande. At the library, Sam and his friend raid vending machines for food and comic books to burn in the fireplace. At some point, Jack and his team encounter a roadblock and must continue on foot. Jack and Jason are used to walking far distances in the cold because they are researchers working in the North Pole. Frank breaks the glass and falls in as the men are climbing a building. As he is pulled in by their lifeline, he notices that more of the roof is collapsing. Jason is supporting the weight while Jack tries to pull him up. Frank, however, notices the glass beginning to break and decides to cut the line to help his friends. Sacrificing himself, Laura develops a fever and loses consciousness in the library. As they investigate what is wrong with her, they find that she may be experiencing blood poisoning as a result of an infection at her wound. She needs a shot of penicillin right away, otherwise, her wounds might cause an amputation or even death. Sam makes the decision to go in search of food and medicine at a nearby cargo ship that washed in. JD and Brian decide to go along with him. At an army base, when the president passes away, the vice president is informed. Additionally, the International Space Station informs scientists that the weather system affecting North America has moved to New York. Everything would quickly become frozen as it pulled extremely cold air from the upper atmosphere to the surface. Jason and Jack travel through New York, but Jack has to carry Jason after he passes out from exhaustion. In the library, the trio leaves for the cargo ship that is grounded, but when a hungry pack of wolves spots them, they unknowingly put themselves in danger. As Sam, Brian, and JD enter the ship's mess hall, Brian discovers penicillin during their search of the kitchen. JD and Brian are attacked when the wolves barge in. Sam defeats the wolves and saves JD, but after doing so, he is left trapped in the mess hall with JD's foot broken. They need to find a route back to the library. Sam then intends to exit the building and entice the wolves from the dining area. After narrowly avoiding the wolves, he dashes through the ship and returns to Brian and JD. JD was dragged by Sam and Brian into the library. Seeing the descent of frost and ice from the sky, Sam, Brian, and JD enter the library just in time, but they notice the frost entering the room. More books and wood were thrown into the fire as they frantically tried to warm the space. As Jason is being dragged along, Jack notices the sky and realizes they will be caught in the storm's eye. Realizing that everything will soon freeze. As the ice begins to fall, he quickly locates an open vent and throws Jason inside before jumping in himself. Jack with the knowledge that the only thing that can save him and Jason is a fire. When Jason awakens, he discovers ice all around him. He observes that Jack had used an open stove to successfully start a fire. Jack is determined to continue into Manhattan even though the storm's eye has already passed. The two take a night's rest and think about the future of humanity. According to Jack, if we are careless, we might not survive this ice age, even though we survived the last one. Astronauts on board the International Space Station saw land for the first time in days, as they observed the storm's dissipation. When Jack exits their tent, he discovers a sizable ship that has been frozen in place. They resume their journey. When the two finally arrived in the city, after passing the Statue of Liberty, they discovered that the entire bay was frozen and covered in several meters of snow. They locate the library, which is just visible through the snow, and find the fireplace, where Sam and the others are sleeping and being kept alive by a blazing fire. Jack and Sam are finally reunited. Jack sent messages to the heads of state informing them of survivors. The president then addresses the country, informing them that despite extreme hardship, survivors have been discovered in New York. To locate anyone who is stranded in the northern states, a massive search and rescue operation is in progress. Jack and the group was finally picked up by a helicopter, and they took off flying south while passing through Manhattan. They see additional survivors waiting for help on rooftops. An astronaut in the International Space Station observes the planet as it changes, marking the sky as clear as he's ever seen.